Hi, everybody. Today I have with me Vikki Kempker. Hi, Vikki.
Hello there.
And the reason that I wanted to bring you on, Vikki, is because, for personal reasons, that you helped me and my husband, but also for the reasons for you to help my followers. So I'm just going to give a quick little synopsis. For those of you that know that my husband is in a different environment, then you'll just understand how profound this was. But for those that you don't know, just my husband's somewhere that he can't easily be reached right now. And I was in a session with Vicki, and Vicki was able to release some of the energy that was blocking my husband. And I quickly realized, working with you, Vicki, that this is not just the emotion code, the body code, and the belief code, that you were really pulling from a reservoir of skills that was beyond just what you could learn in a book. So, Vicki, I would love for you to share with everybody what it is that you do.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me on. I'm so appreciative of, again, being able to spread the word of how things can be a lot easier than we expect it to be. And I was drawn to energy healing probably about 15 years ago when I was sitting in a garage with my neighbors down the street. And he was like, I've got this really weird thing you might be interested in. And I've always been like, sure, I'll try anything. Because if you're doing something and it's not working, like, okay, what else is there? That things are supposed to be easy. And if they're not, how can we change that? So I ended up going to an energy practitioner, and some of the things that he had come up with, you're like, oh my God, that really makes sense. And you don't have to have trauma in your history to be stuck. So I got very curious on it. And since then, I've just been on this journey to say, I want to help other people. So I've taken some theta healing classes, just being intuitive and being around other people who are intuitive in different modalities and just trusting the process. About 2 years ago, I decided I was going to get certified through Bradley Nelson, who I know you've generously had him on your show. But I got certified for the body code, emotion code, and now belief code. And then I incorporate those healings into other modalities to really make an impact on somebody's life. And I always say it ceases to amaze me when I go up and I connect to spirit and to the person's subconscious. And I'm really just talking to their body and having a conversation, and where their blocks are. If someone has a block, it's, I got triggered by somebody at work. I've got this going on. I've got that going on. Finances. I can just go up to the subconscious through muscle testing and say, what's going on? And I've got a binder that I use, and this is pretty much my healing. And sometimes it'll direct me to body code or belief code. But a lot of times these little things that happen, people don't realize the association back to their youth. And that's really where this stems, because that's where we're most vulnerable, and we're looking up to people. And we may have caregivers who were so focused on their own life that they didn't pay attention to us. And all of a sudden we have abandonment issues. And as we're going through our life and we realize that we're being triggered by somebody at work, and somebody leaves us on a project, or our children go off to college, and all of a sudden something gets triggered, but it's really triggering something back typically in their childhood, that again, we can change that energetic tie to it so that they may not have that energy pulled towards it. And sometimes just the awareness of, oh, that makes so much sense, and I can energetically clear the entire timeline. And it's fascinating because there's times where all of a sudden my hand will move really slow, and I'm like, okay, I'm about your 30s. What happened? And they're like, oh, that's when I got divorced, or that's when somebody passed away. I mean, I can say something and it'll register, and it's their subconscious who's just begging to say, please, I don't want to hold on to this anymore. And that's the body's way to say, if something's being triggered, it's not meant to make you slide backwards in your goals or do anything. It's really meant to say, here's an opportunity that you can clear and identify what's going on, because 98% of the time it has nothing to do with what the person thinks it is. It goes back to what their subconscious will guide them to, that they're ready to release.
So true, so true. So can you give me some scenarios of either different things that have been released that you just kind of like weren't expecting that to be correlating to some of the symptoms they were experiencing?
Yeah, so I had one person who loved peanut M&Ms, and she just, I mean, that was one of her things. That was her go-to. And she's like, "Oh, I just love peanut M&Ms. It doesn't have anything to do with it." And all of a sudden start doing some work on her, and it had to do with a very fond memory of her and her grandfather. And they would go to the movie theater, and that was their special time. So for her, that had nothing to do with the taste of peanut M&Ms. It really had to do with that special moment, that bond. And that was her way, and as she was going through her life, that she needed that bond. So instead she turned to the peanut M&Ms. My story is Reese's peanut butter cups, and I was addicted to Reese's peanut butter cups. I'm still a sugar addict. It's still a ongoing habit to make sure that I'm not doing it. But that was where I discovered that, my dad had lovingly given my mom, my sister, and myself a red rose, a Valentine's card, and our favorite candy bar. And years he had done this. So in my 20s, when I was on my own, trying to figure out my career, I was dating, wasn't having any success, I started binge eating, and I would binge on Reese's peanut butter cups. That was my go-to, other sugar too, but that was really the one that had that special memory. And it was through my energy practitioner that I identified, like, Reese's represents love and self-love. And I was able to break that connection. And then it took probably about 5 years to finally realize, going, okay, every time I'm eating this, I need self-love. But then through the coaching, my own coaching, had to say, now what am I going to do to break that habit? And that's when I got involved in the keto and carnivore, because that was the one thing that kind of turned that dialogue in my head and put it from 10, or, raging to you want more, just eat until you feel sick, to, down to 1, where it was like, I didn't think about it. So that was when it really became powerful to say, this stuff is just amazing, of how we can identify, going, okay, I'm really lacking love. What can I do? And sometimes it's easy to course correct, and other times it's like, no, let's see what else is going on. Because again, it's not just, okay, you can break that energetic tie. Sometimes if there's still not self-love, there's something else. It's kind of, you transfer to something else. So it's just like, it's amazing what the subconscious will share with you when you ask the right questions. Another one I had was, her daughter had gone off to college, and she was just stuck, having a really tough time, going, I don't know what to do. Like, she just, somebody who's very driven, very motivated, was like, I'm not happy. And it ended up coming back to being, thinking it was, because of her child going off to college, when in reality it tied back to when she was felt abandoned as a child. And we were able to get down to the year, and she's like, yep, that's when my father had passed away. So she felt abandoned. It wasn't so much grief that was impacting her that we discovered. It was really that abandonment of, now what do I do? Everybody leaves me, and it's just validating it back to present day.
Wow. Wow. And it's amazing to find that so many things are connected. You mentioned a little bit about your coaching and how you help people with their habits. So can you go into that a little bit? Because it's so much more layers to what you have to offer people.
Yeah, thank you. So when I work with people, that they're like, okay, I really want to, I want to leave my career. I want to go and I want to eat better. I want to release weight. Well, a lot of times it's going to be the stories that we're telling ourselves. So we can, they can set their goals. We set the goals together. So they say, okay, you know what? I want to go off carbs. That may be their big thing. Or I want to stop drinking coffee because that's my crutch. We can do some muscle. So we do the coaching. You can do it either weekly or bi-weekly, or what works in the budget. But when you're not hitting your goals, we can do some energy work to say, okay, so what's really going on? What's really blocking you? Because you said this is important, but maybe there's something else energetically that we need to release that to. so that we can then release that energy, clear it, and they can maybe take 10 more steps forward and then clear some more energy next time. So it's just amazing when you pair where they're stuck, because again, we all get triggered. But when we get triggered or stuck, that's when that can be perfect to complement the energy healing and their goal setting so that they can continue to make progress in what's most important to them without being stuck in their past.
Awesome. And honestly, I mean, it's amazing how much I think that the body and the spirit are connected. And whenever you're able to clear out the addiction to food, that's basically kind of like diminishing the carnal nature, and it makes the spiritual nature like so much more online and so much more connected.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because I kept, I was more of a social drinker, and I kept hearing, things will start magically becoming even more powerful when you stop drinking. And it was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And finally I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of using work as the excuse. Like, oh, I got to do happy hour. I socialize. I do all of this. And it was like, these people aren't coming home to bed with me and realizing I'm not sleeping. I'll come home and I'll binge eat. Like, no wonder I'm not doing my purpose, is because I've got all these things that I'm choosing to sabotage myself over. So 2 years ago, I stopped drinking, and it is amazing that connection that has gone even stronger. And again, it's very powerful when I'm able to tap into somebody and have it just be so spot on. And I think that was one of the cool things on the certification for all three: body code, emotion code, and belief code. I had to do sessions on people, and none of them I knew. And it was all through email. So I can also do, if someone says, okay, I don't want to do this face to face, or I don't want to do it on the phone, just email it to me. I would do my session, and I'd email it to them, and I'd be like, okay, if any of this resonates, let me know. And 90% of them came back with specifics of, oh my gosh, this is what happened. And it was just validation to say, it's energy. Like, many of them I don't know, or I don't know their past. And when something comes up, they're just pleasantly pleased to say, oh, I can tie that together and that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was undeniable as you were speaking and you were doing the session for me and then my husband. It was just like, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Like, it was just undeniable, the things that were presenting themselves in our session. And one of the things that I love about you is that you actually come from the corporate world. And me coming from being a therapist, like, I really respect that, because it takes a whole nother level of bravery to step out into a field like this, and not stay safe in the corporate world. And so, talk a little bit about that and how that transition is for you.
Yeah. And it is tough to leave the safety. And I've done a lot of energy work on myself. I mean, I'm doing it all the time, because things will come up, and I'll open up my belief code app, and I'll get up, I find it, I'm like, okay, what's showing up? Because it is easy to go back to our comfort zone. And even though we're not happy where we're at, it's the easy way. And I was kind of pushed to say, nope, this is what's taking place. And my motto was trust and surrender to the process. Like, trust the process, like, trust that God's got my back. And it's not going to be this, I've got a blank canvas in front of me. And on this blank canvas, what do I want it to look like? And that's what I'm doing right now, is to say, I'm going in faith that this is a tool that somebody may have never even thought of doing, or realizing that, I didn't realize, yes, I'm triggered by somebody, and it can be an eye roll somebody's triggered off of. And they think it's this person, but the reality, it goes back to, maybe it's a second grade teacher, and that was their way of communicating, and they have no idea, but they can put that piece together. So I just know that things are changing so much, and people are waking up to realize that it's not woo-woo anymore. It used to be the fact of, oh my gosh, it's so woo-woo. It's like, no, when you can come, when someone's open to saying, I've tried everything, I'm frustrated, I don't know what to do. This is an amazing tool to say, you know what, let me give it a shot, because it's a small investment, and if something can come of it, then just like everything else, it's not just a one and done, because you're like, oh my gosh, if we could discover this, what other things is going to show up? And when you start releasing these energetic blocks, amazing things do take place.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love most about, you coming from the corporate world into this, woo woo, but not really stuff, is that you have made a choice to be here. You could choose to go back into corporate America, and you chose to follow your guidance, to follow that spirit was ruffling your feathers, and that you were just like, no, I'm going to do what I'm being led to do. And so that makes it even more valuable to me, that it's not just like, oh, Vicki's doing this because this is all she could ever do.
Right.
Like, no, Vicki is a very skilled practitioner, and she is choosing to operate in this field.
And I would
And
say that's an amazing, yeah, it's amazing when someone says, this is what's important to me, and they're, you know, and this can be for anybody. If they're like, I'm sick and tired of feeling like I'm sick and tired of, whether it be their health, their career, their relationships, there's things that can be done. And I think that's the important thing to realize is, it doesn't mean that you're going to all of a sudden want to get divorced, or if you're in a relationship, but it can start changing the dynamics of a conversation, realizing that it's not the person, maybe it's the tone of the voice, and the tone of the voice has nothing to do with that point. It's triggering something from maybe it's a father figure that they had growing up. And when they can realize the fact of, oh, I see I'm attracted to this, I'm drawn to this because that was what was comfortable at the time. But these habits that they were never able to talk to a father figure for, now they're using it to talk to their spouse or a coworker. I was drawn to somebody where I cleared all the energy on the male side, and then I had a boss that was a female version of that, and you're like, okay, so it's not just a one and done. There's always constant of what can we do on the energetic side. So yeah, it's I think that's what's important is if someone's got this is what I really want to do, it takes courage, and then you also have to trust. I trusted my scenario that I wasn't meant to be in corporate, and it opened up to what I'm dealing right now.
I love that. I love that. And I know that for me, whenever I first was introduced to the emotion code, I looked at it as like a spa day, like a luxury, or like this is something for me to just pamper myself. But now I recognize it more as an investment in my health. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I say between the health and, so one of my limiting beliefs, and that's where the belief code has been so amazing, is, something will come up financially. So again, I'm walking away from corporate, and when it shows up to say, I'm scared to death financially, what do I do? It's like, no, let's figure out where these limiting beliefs are coming from. And I always say it never ceases to amaze me of going, oh, that makes total sense. So, when someone's got a health journey and they're going on the path of going, I'm resisting, I feel like I'm struggling, I can't do this alone. Again, spirit, your higher self, your subconscious has been begging you all along that they know you're not happy, and they just want you to be living your purpose and living in joy and living in happiness. And not that every day is going to be this magical life is amazing, but it's also meant to say, if there's something that keeps triggering you, to identify that there is something that can be easily changed. And again, most people will tell me how they feel is like they just feel lighter, or
Hmm.
they can feel a little shift. And sometimes that little shift is like, oh, that gives them the courage to take another step and take another step. And that's why my business is Your Best Awaits, because when you take a step forward into your purpose, whether it be a health purpose, an exercise purpose, a relationship purpose, a career purpose, when you take a step that's working towards what's important to you, that is when your best awaits. So your best is always your next step, making the choice that you want to be. And if you're sliding backwards, there's often an easy way energetically that can be adjusted, released, and shifted for somebody if they want to. Now, again, when I released when I had identified my Reese's, it didn't all of a sudden just go, oh, I don't want another Reese's. So it's not that easy button, but it allowed a dialogue different in my head to say, okay, I really don't, like, I'm lonely right now. I'm sad right now. I raised my kids, as a single parent. It's tough. So it was like, I didn't have, even though I had a support system, Reese's was my support. That was that was what filled it. And then I would get so mad at myself for binging on it that it was easier, instead of realizing love, it's like, nope, I'm so disgusted with myself. And it was just a different dialogue. So again, realizing, then going, okay, now I'm sick and tired of binging. I know what it is. Now I need to do something to change my habits. And that's when, again, that's where the coaching and the support, the weekly or whatever works best for them, to then help them get to what's really important to them. And a lot of times it is a health goal. A lot of times, again, what I believe is, with my story, it's sugar. So I'm able to help people, anybody who's stuck, but really it's the people who have health goals, and they're not hitting those health goals. But then it's like, just like, you and I had talked, and then you shared it with somebody else. They're coming to me then for a totally different reason, because they realize, oh my gosh, Emily found such relief in the conversation that we had. They want the same type of comfort, and it may not do with emotional eating. So, that's really, it kind of comes full circle, where I feel like my niche is the sugar addiction. Yet anybody who's stuck and just goes, I want better in my life, will absolutely benefit and find value in the gift that I'm so blessed to have, to serve others to get themselves in a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think that so often what happens is, we're focusing on the one thing that is the pain point for us, that is the suffering. And we don't realize all of the other things that are connected to that pain point, that really, reveal the network, the root system
Yes.
of, this is the pain point, but then these are the roots that
Yeah.
come into that pain point. Um, so that's why I love, work like what you do, because it isn't just a luxury. It is actually foundational. Our
Yeah.
belief system is foundational for all that we want to accomplish.
Yeah. And again, I think that's important to think, because there's people like, I'm very fortunate that I don't have any traumatic life events that I have to go through, where, many people that I do work with do. But again, that doesn't mean, and the cool thing is I've had people they've done talk therapy for years, and they still, like, that energetic tie. So sometimes they'll come and say, someone will come and say this, this is what I've been working through on therapy. I said, well, let's see energetically what happens. And, we'll go in and we'll do some belief work and some of the other tools that I have. And sometimes it's, they're corded to something, which means, energetically they're tied together. So sometimes even cutting that cord, can give them that relief of, wow, it's different. And they may not be able to put their hands on it, because you can't always identify the feeling of what energy is like. So everybody's got a slightly different experience. I have people who just, start sobbing because there's just such a release. So it's just, no session is ever the same. No scenario is ever the same. And it's just amazing that I'm so blessed to be able to help people get to the next phase of what's best for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I was bawling during my session with you, and we were doing it as I was proxy for my husband because he couldn't be there with us. And we have read all the books and done all the talk on, really processing. And he's been through countless therapy. And this was so amazing whenever all of these limiting beliefs surfaced
Yeah.
and came to the surface. And I don't know if I told you this or not, but I gave my husband the transcript and the whole list of what we released. And he was just like, check, check, check. Like he
Wow.
was like,
That's-
yes, yes, yes. And these were conversations that my husband and I had never even had. So I was really surprised whenever these limiting beliefs came up. And I just, I told it to him, and he was like, yes, like he completely confirmed everything that you
wow.
said. And so it was very, very powerful that even when you've done all the right things, you've read the book, you've done the therapy, there's still more that is ready to be healed and ready to be released. And honestly, I think it's foundational.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because it does like the root system is that's what happens. So, when you've got a limiting belief, whether it's I'm not worthy or abandonment, or, you grew up in poverty, or you grew up, however that is, that then creates all the root system. And then we just have layers on top of it. But it's interesting. It can also be the bridge between releasing those limiting beliefs. But again, just because you release the limiting beliefs and read all the books doesn't mean all of a sudden everything's going to be amazing. You've got to do the work, and you've got to do the hard work. And the hard work is making different choices, reading, if you're in a toxic relationship, if you're in a toxic work relationship, like what can you do actively to better yourself, to learn to, like, one of my favorite hacks is cancel, clear, delete. So if somebody comes to me, or if I'm driving there, or there's a commercial that comes on sometimes, and it's like, you did this, and I'm like, nope, I'm not taking that energy. So I'll go cancel, clear, delete, cancel that, delete it out of my memory, and cancel, clear it out of my memory, and then delete it. Like I'm not, like, block it. Like I'm not accepting that. And that's one of the things that people can say is, cancel, clear, delete. Like, nope, don't want that. Um, and then my other hack that I love to share is when you've got that negative chatter, and it's, I don't want to do, how am I going to do this? It's like, you know what, voice, this is my movie. I'm creating this. Go take a seat in the back bleachers, in the back of the theater, because it's when you start to realize all these things that are running through the back of our heads, or forefront of it, kindly go take a seat in the back, and you can come back later. But right now, I need to do what's right for me, and that's going to be a conversation, a dialogue, the right choice for food. I'm going to work out. I'm going to go for the walk, whatever that is. I'm making a choice for me. So just go take a seat in the back until I finish what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. And is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to make sure and bring up?
No, I mean, I think, you've given the great opportunity for me to share some of the stories that I've been able to help with. Shared yours and how relatable everything is. And again, it's, sometimes because I'm right in the moment, I don't even know some of the things that come out, because it's not about me. It's really kind of, for that person. So it's always comforting and a blessing to hear that it's their subconscious, and I'm just a facilitator between spirit, themselves, and their higher selves. So people can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, at Your Best Awaits. And if they go to my website, it's www.yourbestawaits.net.
Yes.
So
And
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And I will absolutely put all those links in the description. And I can't thank you enough, because like I've interacted with people before, and I've witnessed practitioners and everything, but whenever you did that session with me, it was undeniable the connection that you had to spirit. And that was really impressive to get to witness. So thank you so much for the work you did for
Thank you.
me. And thank you for the work that you're going to be able to offer to my followers.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good
Bye.
one.
You too.